An abandoned starship rejected by all. A human mechanic made it the greatest warship. The starship drifted silently above the pale blue planet, its enormous frame broken and scarred from decades of neglect. Rust streaked its hull and the great engines were cold, dark, and lifeless. For years it had been abandoned, rejected by every major galactic power. To the galaxy, it was worthless, a floating relic of a past era, left to orbit endlessly in silence. But to Mara, it was something else entirely. She floated toward the massive hull in her small shuttle, her heart racing with anticipation. Humans were known across the galaxy as capable, clever, and stubborn, yet most alien species thought of them as fragile and limited, unsuited for handling ships of this size and complexity. Mara knew better. She had worked on vessels half the size of this starship and made them outperform entire fleets. Now she faced her greatest challenge. As she docked, the airlock hissed open, revealing the interior of the ship. Dust floated in slow, lazy swirls, illuminated by the pale light that seeped through cracked panels. The corridors were silent except for the echo of her boots. Every surface spoke of neglect. Every wire sagged like tired limbs. But beneath the decay, she could feel the pulse of possibility. "This is more than scrap," she whispered to herself. "It just needs understanding." Mara moved carefully through the ship, her hands brushing over cold control panels and old consoles. She marveled at the design. It was complex, far beyond anything she had worked on, yet elegant in a way she appreciated. Whoever built this ship had poured incredible thought into it. It was clear why it had once been valued, but something had gone wrong. Perhaps the technology had been too advanced, or perhaps it had simply been abandoned at the wrong time. She activated her portable scanner. Numbers, diagnostics, and warnings appeared in glowing blue text. The ship groaned as dormant systems began to stir, as if awakening from a long sleep. Mara's eyes sparkled. "See?" she said softly. "You just need someone who cares." Hours passed as she traced the lines of power conduits, checked the reactors, and logged the damages. Every time she found a problem, she imagined a solution. She sketched diagrams, noting where she could repair, replace, or innovate. Other species might have given up after seeing the damaged core or the rusted plasma conduits, but Mara thrived on challenge. By midday, she had reached the heart of the ship, the power core. The massive cylinder of dormant energy loomed before her, surrounded by ancient machinery covered in dust. She studied it carefully. The aliens who had abandoned this ship had been cautious, too cautious. The humans, she knew, had a different approach. Careful risk, creative problem-solving, and relentless persistence. Her fingers danced over the controls. Small sparks leapt, and systems flickered to life. Lights glowed faintly along the walls. The ship shivered slightly, as though surprised to feel life after decades of stillness. Mara stepped back, smiling.
"Good. You remember how to breathe?"
Suddenly, a soft hum grew into a steady vibration reverberating through the corridors. Mara's heart jumped. The ship was responding. Its sensors detected her presence, its engines tested themselves, and faint energy readings pulsed in rhythm. In orbit above them, unnoticed by Mara, a small surveillance drone hovered. It had been sent by a galactic alliance to investigate the sudden reactivation of the long-forgotten ship. Its tiny lens focused on Mara, noting every movement, every adjustment she made. "This human is curious," a robotic voice muttered in the drone's system logs. "Highly unusual behavior. Standard procedures predict failure." Back inside the ship, Mara didn't notice. She was too absorbed in the work, too captivated by the potential she saw before her. She climbed the maintenance ladder to the upper deck, brushing her fingers over the cracked control panels. She imagined the ship fully restored, its engines humming, shields strong, and navigation precise. "You could fly again," she said more to herself than to the ship. "You just need someone who understands you." She spent the next few days working tirelessly. She repaired circuits, replaced broken conduits, and cleaned years of dust from delicate machinery. Her hands moved quickly and confidently. Even when a pipe burst or a control panel sparked, she adapted, finding ways to work around the damage. Alien species that had once dismissed humans as weak or limited would have been shocked. Mara thought differently. She thrived in situations where others failed. She was patient, clever, and relentless. As the days passed, the ship's systems began to stir more actively. Lights blinked in corridors, engines warmed, and the life support systems hummed steadily. Mara even managed to reroute some energy lines to increase efficiency, a design choice that no alien engineer had attempted. One evening, as the distant star dipped below the horizon of the planet below, Mara stood in the main control room. She had a small holomap projected before her, displaying the ship in its entirety. Every section was lit, every system accounted for. The ship was beginning to respond as if it recognized her efforts. "This is just the start," she said, her voice firm with determination. "We can be more than what they think we are." Outside, the drone continued its surveillance. Its observers were growing curious. This human was achieving things that standard predictions said were impossible. The ship's systems, once considered beyond repair, were stabilizing at unprecedented levels. Mara spent nights sleeping aboard the ship, her body tired but her mind racing. She dreamt of flying through the stars, maneuvering gracefully among asteroid fields, exploring the far reaches of the galaxy. And in those dreams, the ship wasn't just a collection of metal and circuits. It was alive. It had personality, spirit, and potential. Weeks passed. By now, the ship was no longer just a relic. It had lights along every corridor, engines capable of firing, and navigational systems fully functional. Mara walked along the upper deck, inspecting the hull through the reinforced windows. The stars sparkled around her, reflecting in her eyes. "Soon," she whispered, "you'll show them what humans can do." And for the first time in decades, the ship gave a low, resonant hum, as if acknowledging her words. It was no longer abandoned. It had a purpose again. And with Mara guiding it, its potential was limitless. Far in the distance, the Galactic Alliance's drone recorded every movement, every system activation. Reports would be sent back. Predictions would have to be adjusted. Humans, they thought, were clever, but perhaps not this clever. Perhaps they had underestimated what a single human could accomplish when given determination, skill, and vision. Mara stood in the control room, gazing at the star-strewn expanse before her. She ran her hands along the control panel and smiled. The ship responded, sensors lighting up, engines thrumming softly. "This is only the beginning," she said. And somewhere beyond the edge of the galaxy, the universe began to notice. Mara spent the first hours of her day walking along the ship's main corridor, her eyes scanning every pipe, wire, and panel. The abandoned starship was no longer lifeless. Lights blinked softly, engines hummed with faint energy, and the control systems responded to her touch. It was still far from complete, but the transformation had begun. She paused at the central engineering bay, where the heart of the ship, the core reactor, glowed faintly. Small sparks danced across some exposed conduits, and the low hum of energy vibrated through the metal floor. Mara knelt, her hands deftly adjusting connections, tightening loose panels, rerouting power lines. Every movement was precise, purposeful. "They didn't see it," she murmured to herself, her voice echoing softly. "They didn't see how it could work, but I do." In the quiet of the ship, Mara imagined the possibilities. Alien engineers had abandoned it because it did not fit standard protocols. They were rigid in their thinking, unable to see that the ship could function in ways they had not imagined. Humans, on the other hand, had a way of bending the rules, not breaking them, but creating entirely new solutions. That was her advantage. Mara pulled out a small toolkit and began installing custom modifications. She replaced old conduits with lighter, stronger alloys and rerouted power to optimize efficiency. Some systems hummed to life at speeds even she had not expected. She paused, smiling. "Good," she said, running her hand along a panel. "You're smarter than they thought." Hours turned into days. and Mara worked tirelessly. Her tools sparkled under the artificial lights, moving with a rhythm that seemed almost like a dance. She patched up leaking coolant lines, repaired navigation sensors, and rewrote portions of the ship's software to anticipate her commands. With every small victory, the ship seemed more responsive, almost eager to operate. Mara paused one evening, leaning against a console. She looked out through the reinforced glass at the twinkling stars. She imagined piloting the ship through asteroid fields, weaving between planets, outmaneuvering alien fleets. The thought excited her, but she reminded herself to be patient. First, the ship had to be ready. While Mara worked, far above in the galaxy, the surveillance drone monitored her every move. The alien observers could hardly believe what they saw. Subject is making modifications inconsistent with known technology, one voice said. Systems thought irreparable are operational. Probability of success should be near zero, yet it continues to rise.
Another observer clicked through reports. Humans are unpredictable.
Perhaps this is why they survive in extreme environments. They innovate. They adapt. Standard protocols fail to predict outcomes. Back on the ship, Mara ran a diagnostic on the main engines. She tapped a sequence on the console, and the engines responded with a low, steady vibration. Smoke and sparks rose in small bursts, but they were signs of life, not failure. She smiled, wiping her brow. "You just needed a friend," she whispered. "Someone who could see you as you could be." Over the next week, Mara's modifications grew more daring. She built diversion drones to scout ahead, energy shields that could absorb impacts without breaking, and emergency systems that could redirect power instantly. None of these designs had been standard. All were human innovation. Each modification made the ship stronger, faster, more intelligent. The alien drone watched quietly, recording everything. Its observers were starting to whisper among themselves, their skepticism slowly turning into curiosity. Why has a single human achieved what an entire fleet of engineers could not? One asked. The human mind, they realized, had a quality their artificial intelligence and strict protocols could never replicate: creativity under pressure. One day while Mara was working on the shield generators, an unexpected problem appeared. The control panel sparked violently, sending smoke curling into the room. Normally, such damage would have shut down the system completely. Other species would have retreated. But Mara was human. She didn't panic. Her hands moved quickly, rewiring connections, rerouting circuits, improvising with spare parts. Sparks flew, lights blinked, and the panel hummed back to life. Mara stepped back, breathing heavily but smiling. "See?" she said softly. "Nothing can stop us when we think differently." By now, the ship was beginning to feel alive. Its systems responded almost instinctively to her commands. The navigation array predicted movements before she input them. Energy channels distributed themselves efficiently. The life support system adjusted automatically to her presence. Mara walked through the ship as if it were a companion, patting consoles, talking to systems. "You're learning fast," she said. "I like that. I like that a lot." Names were important. They gave identity, and identity created a connection. After much thought, she chose a name that symbolized rebirth and strength: Phoenix. "Phoenix," she said aloud as she walked along the upper deck, "we're going to rise together." With every modification, Mara tested Phoenix's capabilities. She executed short flights within the planet's orbit, weaving through asteroid fields, testing thrusters and checking energy efficiency. Each trial was more successful than the last. Where alien engineers had seen a broken hull, she saw a canvas. Where others saw impossibility, she saw opportunity. The more Phoenix performed, the more the galactic drone reported. The observers were no longer just curious, they were amazed. "Subject exhibits extreme problem-solving," one noted. "System's performance exceeds original specifications. Adaptation is unprecedented. Probability of human failure is now decreasing with time." Meanwhile, Mara continued her work with determination. She integrated new systems for communication, allowing the ship to interact with AI drones, navigational satellites, and other vessels. She even constructed a small lab for studying energy flow, optimizing the reactor for both speed and efficiency. Despite the hard work, Mara found moments to appreciate the ship. She walked through the corridors at night, listening to the hum of engines, feeling the subtle vibration of the life core beneath her feet. She imagined Phoenix as a partner, one that trusted her as much as she trusted it. And trust was important. Mara knew that in the galaxy a ship alone, no matter how powerful, was just metal. But with human creativity, intuition, and determination, it became something more. A force, a mind, a symbol. One afternoon, as Mara was calibrating the shields, a minor alarm went off. She traced it to a small sensor that had been damaged years ago. A rival alien technician had once claimed humans could not understand the ship. Now Mara laughed softly as she repaired the sensor in minutes, integrating it into her new shield network. "They don't understand us," she said aloud, shaking her head. "And that's why we win." By the end of the second week, Phoenix was no longer just functional. It was extraordinary. Energy flowed smoothly through its conduits, shields absorbed impacts without strain, and thrusters maneuvered with a precision that rivaled even the fastest alien vessels. Mara had taken an abandoned, rejected starship and turned it into something new, something remarkable. But Mara knew this was only the beginning. Out in the galaxy, fleets and observers were starting to take notice. Some were curious, some skeptical, and others wary. The ship's transformation could not remain a secret for long. One evening, Mara stood at the main observation deck, looking out at the stars. Phoenix thrummed softly beneath her feet, as if acknowledging her presence. She closed her eyes and imagined the ship soaring through the galaxy, not as a relic of the past, but as a symbol of human ingenuity.
They laughed at us, she said softly. They thought we were weak, unworthy.
But we think differently. We create, we adapt, and we never give up. That's what makes us human. And that
Makes us unstoppable. Far above, the alien drone continued to record.
its observers could only watch in silence, slowly realizing that their assumptions about humanity had been wrong. Humans were more than they had predicted. Smarter, bolder, more unpredictable. And Mara smiled. She knew the galaxy would soon see what she already knew. Phoenix, the abandoned starship, was no longer a forgotten hull. It had become a living testament to human skill, creativity, and heart. And together, Mara and Phoenix were ready to show the universe exactly what they could do. The galaxy had begun to notice. Phoenix, once a forgotten and abandoned starship, now moved with precision and life under Mara's hands. Its engines thrummed with smooth energy, shields flickered faintly, and the navigation system seemed almost alive, anticipating Mara's thoughts before she even spoke. It was more than a ship now. It was a partner, and the galaxy was beginning to take note. Alien observers who had dismissed Mara at first were growing uneasy. Reports from the surveillance drone highlighted one undeniable fact. A single human had turned a rejected relic into a vessel performing feats no other engineer could imagine. "She's redefining what is possible," one alien analyst said, its voice buzzing over the communication network. "Her methods are unpredictable. Standard logic does not apply." But Mara did not notice the whispers of the galaxy. Her focus was entirely on Phoenix. It spent days integrating advanced navigation systems, building defensive drones, and experimenting with energy diversions. She wanted to ensure Phoenix was not only operational, but capable of surviving situations no other starship could. On this morning, she walked along the upper deck, her hands tracing the smooth railings of the ship. She paused at the observation windows and looked out into the void. The stars stretched endlessly before her, glittering like scattered gems across the black fabric of space. "We're ready, Phoenix," she said softly, her voice full of conviction. "Soon they will see us. Soon they'll realize they underestimated humans." Mara's first test involved maneuverability. She took Phoenix out of orbit and navigated through a dense asteroid belt near the outer edge of the system. Other engineers had considered such a course impossible for a ship of this size. Too slow, too clumsy. But Mara's modifications had changed everything. Phoenix weaved through massive rocks with agility that stunned even Mara herself. Thrusters fired in precise bursts. Shields adjusted automatically, and the diversion drones monitored every trajectory. The ship responded to Mara's smallest gestures, turning, gliding, and accelerating as if it were an extension of her body. She laughed softly as she guided it past the final obstacle. Not bad, huh? Not bad at all. Yet as Phoenix moved with such grace, a small fleet of alien drones appeared on the ship's sensors. They were scouts, sent by a nearby galactic warlord fleet, curious about the sudden activity in a previously abandoned sector. Their sensors picked up Phoenix's energy readings and immediately sent warnings to the warlord command. Mara noticed them almost instantly. "Visitors," she said, tapping the console. "Well, Phoenix, let's see how you handle this." The drones moved in formation, scanning for weaknesses. They were advanced, much more sophisticated than the standard patrol drones Mara had studied. To any alien, Phoenix would seem outnumbered and outmatched. But Mara had something no standard ship could counter: human creativity. She activated the diversion drones. They flickered to life, darting around the fleet like swarms of fireflies, creating false sensor signatures and confusing the scouts. Phoenix itself maneuvered in patterns the drones could not predict, weaving and spinning through space with impossible precision. The alien observers watching from afar gasped. Their reports struggled to keep up with the chaotic yet flawless movements.
They're improvising in real time, one analyst said.
"How is this possible?" Mara smiled, her hands moving across the controls. "It's simple," she said. "You can't predict humans. We think differently." The diversion drones drew the scouts away, while Phoenix glided silently behind them. Mara initiated a defensive protocol. Shields pulsated to confuse enemy sensors. Energy fields created phantom readings, and Phoenix's navigation systems projected multiple ghost signals across the radar. Each move was calculated, precise, and non-lethal. The goal was to demonstrate capability, not to destroy. The alien drones, unable to locate the true ship, transmitted frantic signals back to the warlord fleet. The fleet commander, expecting an easy find, grew suspicious. Reports indicated movement patterns that should have been impossible for a vessel of Phoenix's size. Meanwhile, Mara continued to test Phoenix's systems. She experimented with energy diversions that could power shields in seconds, reroute propulsion to avoid collisions, and synchronize with the diversion drones in ways the enemy could not predict. Every innovation increased Phoenix's efficiency, and every success reinforced Mara's confidence. The scouts, frustrated and disoriented, finally retreated to report back. Mara let Phoenix glide silently, its systems humming in quiet satisfaction. She exhaled, leaning back in her control seat. "Not bad for a first demonstration," she said. "You're learning fast." The alien drone that had been watching her recorded every action, analyzing the tactics. Its observers were now stunned. Mara had taken a ship once dismissed as worthless and created something that could outsmart a fleet of highly advanced scouts. This is human ingenuity," one voice admitted reluctantly. "Unpredictable, adaptable, and clever. They do not follow our rules. Perhaps we have underestimated them." Mara did not wait for recognition. She knew the universe would notice soon enough. Instead, she focused on preparation. The next step was exploration, learning the limits of Phoenix and ensuring it could operate in hostile conditions without fail. She spent the next few days running simulations. Phoenix navigated asteroid belts, nebula clouds, and gravitational anomalies with ease. Mara tested energy rerouting defensive drones and communication networks. Each simulation revealed new possibilities. Phoenix was learning, adapting, and evolving under Mara's guidance. One evening, as the ship drifted silently near the edge of a gas giant, Mara paused in the observation deck. The swirling clouds below reflected faintly on the glass. She thought about the galaxy that had written this ship off, the species that had laughed at humans, and the warlords who assumed human ships were weak. They don't know us, she said softly, almost to herself. But soon, they will. Phoenix, as if understanding her intent, thrummed softly beneath her feet. The engines glowed faintly. Lights flickered across the control panels, and the hum of life vibrated through every corridor. Mara smiled, confident in their partnership. But the galaxy was watching. News of Phoenix's activation had begun to spread. Other alien fleets, curious about the unusual energy signatures, started monitoring the star system. Some came with caution, others with suspicion. The abandoned Starship, now a symbol of human innovation, was no longer hidden. One morning, Mara received a signal on a private frequency. It was from a neutral trade fleet, requesting contact. They had heard rumors of a human-engineered ship performing impossible maneuvers and wanted to witness it themselves. Mara agreed, seeing an opportunity to demonstrate non-lethal strength and gain allies. She prepared Phoenix for the rendezvous. Thrusters warmed, shields activated, and diversion drones went on standby. The trade fleet arrived in formation, sleek and cautious. They studied Phoenix carefully, their sensors scanning every surface, every light, every movement. Mara stepped onto the observation deck, facing the fleet. This ship, she said calmly, was abandoned, rejected, written off. And yet, here we are. It's not just a vessel. It's a testament to what humans can do when we refuse to give up. We think differently. We adapt, we create, and we never quit. The trade fleet observed silently as Mara guided Phoenix through a demonstration. The ship maneuvered flawlessly, evading simulated attacks, deploying diversion drones, and showing off its energy efficiency and shields. Every move highlighted human ingenuity, clever strategy, and creative thinking. By the time the demonstration ended, the trade fleet's sensors had recorded everything. Their command officers exchanged glances, stunned by what they had witnessed. "This is remarkable," one whispered. "A human built this alone?" Humans do remarkable things. Some of you just need to see it for yourselves. As the trade fleet departed, sending positive reports back to their governments, Mara felt a quiet satisfaction. Phoenix had not only survived, she had impressed the galaxy, but she knew the biggest challenge was still ahead. Beyond the edge of the system, a warlord fleet had begun moving. Reports of Phoenix's capabilities had reached them, and they were curious, suspicious, and eager to test the ship's limits. They underestimated humans, as they always did, but Mara knew this could be the ultimate chance to prove human brilliance. She stood at the main console, looking out at the stars.
"Phoenix," she said, her voice firm, "we've come a long way."
"But the real test is coming. Are you ready?" Phoenix thrummed in response, lights pulsing across the corridors, engines humming. The ship was alive, it was learning, and it was ready. Mara took a deep breath. The galaxy had begun to notice humanity's potential, and soon, no one would be able to ignore it. The abandoned ship, once rejected by all, had become a rising star. And under Mara's guidance, it was about to show the universe exactly what humans could do. The dark expanse of space was silent, but Mara felt the tension in every vibration of Phoenix's hull. The distant warlord fleet was approaching fast, their massive ships glinting in the light of nearby stars. They had heard the rumors. An abandoned human starship had become more than any fleet could predict. They came expecting an easy victory, confident that humanity could not match their technology. Mara stood at the command console, eyes scanning the approaching fleet on the holographic display. She had prepared Phoenix for this moment for weeks, running simulations, strengthening shields, and programming the diversion drones to act as independent units. But simulations were one thing. Real warships, alive, intelligent, and coordinated, were another. "They think this will be easy," Mara said softly. "But they don't know us, and they never will." Phoenix thrummed beneath her feet, lights flickering in response to her commands. The ship felt alive, as if it understood what was at stake. Mara took a deep breath and began the engagement sequence. The warlord's flagship loomed closest, massive and menacing, its weapons bristling. The other ships spread in formation, attempting to block any escape. But Mara was not here to fight with brute force. She had something more powerful than weapons: strategy, creativity, and human intuition. "Activate diversion drones," she commanded. Hundreds of small drones swarmed from Phoenix, scattering in multiple directions. They emitted energy pulses, creating ghost signatures and false sensor readings. The warlord's fleet reacted immediately, firing at targets that were not real. Mara guided Phoenix through the chaos, weaving between the false signals with perfect timing. The flagship's sensors struggled to identify the true ship. Mara's heart raced, but she remained calm. Humans excelled at thinking under pressure, and every decision she made was precise. She had anticipated every possible maneuver, every misstep the aliens could make, and she adjusted Phoenix in real time. "Shields to maximum efficiency," she said, rerouting energy from non-essential systems. "Propulsion systems, full adaptive mode. Let's show them what humans can do." Phoenix moved like a living creature, dodging incoming scans and energy pulses. The alien fleet fired repeatedly, but their attacks were misdirected. Each time they thought they had Phoenix cornered, it would slip away, maneuvering in ways no standard ship could achieve. Mara grinned as she watched their confusion on the tactical display. "They underestimated us," she murmured. "That's their mistake." The warlord fleet attempted to coordinate, but human ingenuity was unpredictable. Mara deployed energy diversions, creating phantom ships and false threats. The fleet scrambled, trying to respond to multiple dangers at once. Mara guided Phoenix in intricate patterns, drawing the enemy into a trap of their own making. Her diversion drones performed perfectly, mimicking Phoenix's energy signature while she slipped around the edges of the fleet. The flagship fired continuously, yet each shot missed, wasted against empty space or harmless decoys. Mara adjusted the timing of Phoenix's thrusters, synchronizing with the drones, and the ship became almost untouchable. "You're learning fast," Mara said, smiling at Phoenix. "They'll never catch you. They'll never understand you." Their protocols had predicted total domination over the human ship, yet every calculation Mara had made defied their expectations. Every move was efficient, clever, and human. For the first time, they began to whisper something they had never admitted before. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were dangerous. Humans were extraordinary. Mara knew she could not destroy the fleet. That was not her goal. She wanted to prove that humans could outthink, outmaneuver, and outperform anyone. So she continued with the strategy: distractions, misdirection, and precision. She guided Phoenix to appear in multiple locations at once, confuse the flagship, and dodge attacks seamlessly. The flagship attempted a direct assault, launching a swarm of automated drones to lock onto Phoenix. Mara's fingers danced across the controls, activating energy pulses, shield bursts, and diversion signals. The swarm crashed into each other in chaotic confusion, failing to reach the ship. Mara laughed softly. "They thought technology alone could beat us," she said. "But it's not just about technology. It's about creativity, persistence, and seeing possibilities others cannot." Hours passed as the engagement continued. The alien fleet was exhausted by their own mistakes, their attacks misdirected and wasted. Phoenix, guided by Mara's intellect, remained unharmed, its systems smooth and efficient. Every maneuver Mara made demonstrated human adaptability at its finest. Finally, the flagship commander, frustrated and bewildered, ordered a retreat. The fleet disengaged, unsure how a single ship could outmaneuver their entire formation. Mara watched them leave, feeling a quiet sense of triumph. Phoenix pulsed softly, as if acknowledging their victory. Mara rested her hands on the console, gazing out at the departing fleet. "We did it," she said. "You showed them." "We showed them." The alien observers recorded the entire encounter, their reports marked by amazement and disbelief. They had predicted failure. They had underestimated humanity. And now, they had to admit that humans were capable of brilliance beyond their calculations. Mara spent the next few days conducting minor repairs and recalibrating Phoenix's systems. The engagement had stressed the engines and drones, but nothing was beyond human ingenuity. She worked efficiently, adjusting energy flows, repairing minor damage, and running simulations for future encounters. Every test, every maneuver, we learn, she said softly. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us unstoppable.
With the warlord fleet retreating, Mara knew the galaxy's perception of humanity had changed. The abandoned ship, once rejected by all, had become a symbol of resilience, creativity, and brilliance.
News of Phoenix's exploits began to spread across neighboring systems. Trade fleets, explorers, and neutral governments reported on the human mechanic and her incredible ship. Some species approached cautiously, curious to learn, while others sent envoys to study human innovation firsthand. Mara welcomed them, knowing that this was an opportunity to demonstrate humanity's strengths. Phoenix was no longer a secret, it was a beacon, a proof that humans could think differently, adapt quickly, and achieve the impossible. Mara spent quiet evenings walking through the corridors of Phoenix, touching consoles and speaking softly to the ship. "You did it," she said. "We did it together. They see us now. They can't ignore us." She paused in the observation deck, looking at the stars. The galaxy seemed endless, filled with unknown worlds, unseen challenges, and countless opportunities. And Mara knew one thing: humans would rise to every challenge, not with brute force, but with intelligence, creativity, and determination. Phoenix thrummed beneath her, the hum of engines and shields vibrating through the hull. The ship had become more than metal and energy. It was a symbol of what humans could achieve when they refused to give up, when they believed in possibilities beyond what others could imagine. Mara activated the ship's long-range sensors and mapped a course for exploration. There were new systems to chart, unclaimed space to navigate, and mysteries to solve. The galaxy had seen her brilliance and Phoenix's power, but this was only the beginning. "This is our future," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "We'll explore, we'll innovate, and we'll show the galaxy what humans can do." Far away, across multiple star systems, alien fleets and observers began updating their protocols, noting a single undeniable truth: humanity was not to be underestimated. Their ingenuity, resilience, and creativity had turned the impossible into reality. And somewhere deep within Phoenix's hum, Mara felt the ship's acknowledgement. It had become more than a vessel. It had become a partner, a proof, and a rising force in the galaxy. Together, human and Starship were unstoppable. As Phoenix glided silently through space, Mara stood in the observation deck, looking out at the endless stars. She smiled, confident and unafraid. The galaxy had rejected this ship. The galaxy had doubted humanity. But they had both risen above every expectation, and now the universe would remember the name Phoenix and the human mechanic who made it the greatest starship in the galaxy.
Mara's voice echoed softly through the ship.
"We are human, and we always find a way." The hum of engines, the flicker of lights, and the steady pulse of Phoenix were all the answer the galaxy needed.